Hi, my name is Taylor, and in this lesson, we're going to talk about key Spanish explorers during the European Age of Exploration, along with the lands Spain colonized in both North and South America. Let's go! When Christopher Columbus first landed in the New World in 1492, the world was changed forever. The country which funded Columbus's voyages, Spain, would soon set out to conquer and colonize as much land as possible. Let's start with a quick review of what the term colonization means. Colonization is the action of settling among and establishing control over the indigenous people of an area to benefit and enrich the colonizers. This essentially means that a group of explorers would arrive in a place where other people were living, claim it as their own, and force the native people to surrender to the rules and ways of life in the new settlement by any means necessary. So what was the motivation for colonization? Yep, you guessed it. Money. Well, among other things. Many European explorers at this time were motivated by fortune, fame, and spreading Christianity. Historians often refer to these factors as the 3 G's: gold, glory, and God. After Spain successfully colonized Hispaniola, the country continued to send explorers to the New World. These explorers were called conquistadors. A conquistador was a Spanish explorer who sailed to the New World for personal profit. By the end of the 1400s, Spain was racing other European countries, namely Portugal, to establish control of the Americas. The conquistadors invaded and colonized many lands in the Americas, bringing these lands under the rule of Spain between the 1400s and 1600s CE. While there were many conquistadors during this time period, in this lesson, we're going to talk about just a few who were particularly influential. The first conquistador we'll discuss is Hernán Cortez. Born in Spain, Cortez sailed to the New World at 19 years old and landed in Hispaniola, or modern-day Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Cortez was restless on land and was, like many of his fellow conquistadors, motivated by fame and fortune. So, in 1518 CE, Cortez set sail for present-day Mexico with a crew of 500 people and 11 ships to seek his fortune. When Cortez arrived in Mexico, the land was under the rule of the Aztec Empire. The Aztecs had established control of the area 89 years earlier, in 1430 CE. They had extended their control over most of southern Mexico, parts of Guatemala, and the Yucatan. The Aztecs had conquered this area and demanded tribute from the conquered people in the form of goods, precious metals, and people to sacrifice to appease their gods. They established a hierarchy, or a system in which people or groups are ranked one above the other according to status or authority. At the top of the Aztec hierarchy, there was an emperor, followed by nobles and priests. Their thriving city of Tenochtitlan, which was located in present-day Mexico City, was divided by canals for easy transportation throughout the area. The Aztecs also developed chinampas, which were floating gardens that provided food for the city. Cortez planned to overthrow the very powerful Aztec Empire. After a year of befriending the powerful Aztec Emperor Montezuma II, Cortez learned the weaknesses of the Aztecs. Many of the people under the rule of the Aztec Emperor weren't particularly fond of the human sacrifices, understandably. In 1521 CE, with an army made up of a few Spaniards and thousands of indigenous people, Cortez destroyed Tenochtitlan, killed Montezuma, and took control of the Aztec Empire. Cortez is credited for conquering present-day Mexico and bringing its inhabitants under Spanish rule. Now, let's switch gears and talk a bit about Amerigo Vespucci. Does the name Amerigo sound familiar? Amerigo has a country and 2 continents named after him. Can you guess which ones? Today, along with the United States of America, the continents of both North and South America are named after this explorer. Amerigo Vespucci was an Italian-born explorer who sailed for both Spain and Portugal. In Spanish, the name Amerigo is pronounced and spelled with a C instead of a G, and so he became known by many as Americo. You must be wondering, what did this guy accomplish in order to have not one, but 2 continents named after him? Amerigo Vespucci was a well-educated man who was fascinated by maps and geography. He set out to explore the New World. While there is some controversy among historians regarding his first voyage west from Spain, many accounts place Vespucci's first sail date in 1499 CE, 7 years after Columbus landed in the Bahamas. Vespucci set sail to the New World under the Portuguese flag. His ships traveled along the South American coast down to present-day Patagonia. Along the way, he encountered the rivers Rio de Janeiro and Rio de la Plata. But remember, at this time, these early European explorers were seriously confused. They thought they were in Asia. It was during Vespucci's voyage in 1501 that Vespucci came to suspect that he was looking at a continent entirely different from Asia. He noticed that the sky which they sailed under had different constellations that were not visible in Europe. He also took note of the coastlines they traveled, recording their distances. The explorer carefully studied and pondered over all of this information. He found that the areas and land masses they had explored were actually larger and different than previous descriptions of Asia. This led Vespucci to the conclusion that the area they had explored was indeed an entirely new continent. Amazingly, through these observations, Amerigo Vespucci calculated Earth's circumference of the equator within about 50 miles of accuracy. We've spent a lot of time learning about European sailors exploring and colonizing areas of Central and South America. But what about the North American landmass? Allow me to introduce Juan Pon de Leon. Ponce de Leon was a Spanish conquistador who joined Christopher Columbus on his first journey to Hispaniola. He was later granted permission from Spain to explore the neighboring island of Puerto Rico. Rumor has it that Ponce de Leon went searching for a fountain of youth. This alleged fountain of youth was thought to be a natural spring that could restore one's youth and heal all sickness. While he never found the mythical body of water, during his search in 1513 CE, Ponce de Leon did become the first European to explore what is today the state of Florida. Ponce de Leon's ships landed on Florida's east coast near present-day St. Augustine. He claimed this beautiful land for Spain. Upon looking around at the lavish landscape and wildflowers, he named it La Florida, or Place of Flowers. You know, these days, many older retirees do move to Florida to enjoy a nice quality of life in the sunshine. So maybe Ponce de Leon was onto something. And other notable European explorers of this time? Meet Vasco Núñez de Balboa. Balboa was a Spanish explorer who is best known for being the first European to see the Pacific Ocean. In 1510, he sailed with a group headed for a colony in what is now Colombia, South America. Upon arrival, Balboa discovered that the colony previously established there had been abandoned except for a few people. Balboa persuaded them to go with him to Darien in what is now Panama. It was there that they established a stable colony. During his time on the coast of Panama, it is said that he took a hike and climbed a peak where he saw a large water mass. It was the Pacific Ocean. Upon his discovery, he declared, "I claim this for Spain." Then there was Francisco Vázquez de Coronado, another Spanish explorer who was motivated by the shiny stuff. Yep, we're talking gold. Born in Spain, he later left for the New World in 1535 at 25 years of age. He settled in present-day Mexico until 5 years later in 1540 when he set out with a crew and landed in the present-day U.S. state of New Mexico. Coronado had heard tales of cities full of riches. He did indeed find cities when he arrived in present-day New Mexico, which had been established by indigenous people, namely the Zuni Native American tribe. But rather than cities built of gold, he found them built with adobe, or sun-baked clay. He continued on to also travel along to Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. He claimed these lands for Spain. Let's take a moment here to pause and think about the indigenous people already residing on this land. Indigenous people across North and South America were negatively affected in many ways by Spanish colonization. The greatest impact of Spanish contact with the indigenous people was the introduction of European diseases, which decimated their populations. Without immunity, many indigenous people fell ill and died due to European diseases like smallpox and measles. Additionally, the Spanish had established their own hierarchy in these new colonies, forcing indigenous people to work for the colonizers in a system called an encomienda. The encomienda system was a system in which indigenous people were used for labor in return for the trust of educating them, particularly about Christianity. This resulted in the native population being forced to work on farms, growing food for the Spanish, and mining for gold. Many indigenous people died from overwork as a result of this forced system of labor. The events that took place during Spain's colonization in the Americas played a large part in forming the world as we know it today. It's time to practice what you learned about colonization and the conquistadors in the New World. And remember, stay curious and keep exploring. You never know what you might discover.
Hey, hey.